episode 4 on, we're going to focus on our ticketing system, 1-to-1 plus, our number 1 method of communication in the district. I say number 1 because by a silent show of hands, how many of you receive emails directly to you that could have been a ticket? We have a slow raise of all 3 people's hands. And, one thing I want to clarify first in the podcast is that I know it seems impersonal, right? I felt it did. You're talking for somebody that came from being a teacher in the district for, 15 years and then the mentor for X amount. I served 20 years as somebody that was in need of help as opposed to somebody that was giving the help, right? And it seems impersonal to complete a ticket, right? You think when you're emailing somebody, you're like getting their, you're getting their full attention. You're getting the person that you need. However, who can help me in the explanation as to why the ticket should be your first line of defense?
Well, it lets the IT department know there's an issue. And I understand the email does that, but it is a form of, it keeps everybody within the IT department informed. Because if there's a big, like potentially a bigger issue going on, let's say, knock on wood, somebody's having a problem with email. Is it one person? Is it more than one person? Is it building related? Is it district wide? Is it, so things like that are a good source of information to have the tickets. Mm-hmm. That's just one example.
And that's a really good point, right? So if somebody, let's say, sends me an email about, we'll go with email, even though it would be weird to send me an email about an email, but we use that as an example. I won't necessarily know that, somebody also emailed CJ wrong, a different person. Somebody emailed Kevin Heyman. Like the way that the department communicates is best served to help people because we now know if it is a global problem or an individual problem or a problem for only a group of people based on the amount of people that are putting in tickets. So, multiple people are notified when a ticket goes through, okay? Whereas an email, unless you're CCing the world, really only one person is being notified by that. And then you have to hope that I am available and checking my email in the moment that you send the email to get the fastest service, because in the event that I am running a training, in a meeting, in a presentation, you send me that email, it may be hours before I get that email to the right person, right? The other benefit of the ticketing system is, even though every single member of the technology department is an absolute superhero, sometimes superheroes need a day too, right? So they may have a sick day or a personal day or something going on. And if you send them an email, it's not notifying their covering person, right? So we have technicians that are covering other buildings when somebody is out. So in the event that you don't complete the ticket and you just email your building technician directly, it might take to 24 hours to get your smart board fixed or something bigger than that if you're having a real problem teaching. Whereas if you completed the ticket, it's also notifying other people in the department. Right. Routing. Let's talk a little bit about the routing of the tickets.
Well, I would just really quick too. The other thing, that's good for the tickets as well. Why it's important to submit it. If somebody, let's say somebody emails multiple people in the department, and they happen to put a ticket in, we don't know if, like what you mentioned, if you don't CC everybody that was should be involved in the issue going on, there may be multiple people looking at one issue trying to address it, especially if it's like a possible server related issue, and then then that's taking up multiple people's time in the department, which could be problematic, or people are looking at an issue from multiple ends and kind of, I don't want to say wasting time. It's taking up people in the department. So it's good to have the ticketing so we know who's working on what at what time. So it's live data too. The ticketing system, it like you said, and this is good because the routing, depending on what the issue is, based on the category you select, yes, there are multiple people that will get notified. There's not necessarily just one single person that's getting the notification for a ticket that's submitted in throughout the district.
So Kevin, you bring up a little bit about live data. I want to just talk about that for a second because 1-to-1 plus was, I think, I talk about my learning curve, right? Like the learning curve that I had to, still have to, because I'm only in year 2 of this job and there's something new I learn every day. But definitely the ticketing system and the way the team operated with the tickets was something that I really had to learn and understand very, very, very granularly in order to know how the team operated and the best way in which I was able to communicate with them. And I learned very quickly that if somebody writes me an email, I have to say, point taken, but please put in a ticket. But can you just talking about the data, let me know, or let us know, all you listeners out there, how many tickets were in September? How many tickets did the IT team service in the month of September? Let's pull up that data.
So from September 1st till September 30th of 2021, the IT department had a total of 1,498 tickets, just too shy of 1,500 tickets that were submitted and addressed in the ticketing system, and that's just 1 month.
Yeah, and at the time, we have now gotten two more members of the team.
Yes.
But at the time, we were 2 less people.
Yeah.
And one of our technicians, Santo Moscova, he had 3 buildings at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there's been many, many people that have gone through 3 buildings. We have one now that has 3 buildings. I know that there have been multiple technicians over the years that have had more than 1 building. Yeah, I mean, Mike Moeller's building alone at the high school is, he's servicing.
Yeah, that's that
whole building.
Massive building in itself.
Yeah. So
just to kind of put the little timeline of things, like the ticketing system too. When I first started in 2016, we had a ticketing system through BOCES, and it was very, it served a purpose, but it was very limited in what it can do. And the issue with it is that the old director used to have to sign into the platform and assign tickets based on what it was, whether it be building related or network related, to a specific person. It was very antiquated and was not efficient. And we would have to wait for those tickets to be assigned on a daily basis. So we could come in and there'd be no tickets. And then all of a sudden at 2 o'clock, there'd be half a dozen tickets, 12 tickets, whatever the case was. So it was very antiquated. We did move forward like a year or 2 after I started with School Dude, which it served its purpose from an IT perspective. I personally think, because of the pandemic and things like that, we outgrew that. So we needed to get, again, live data as far as reports, keeping track of some assets, and just more in the sense of being more modern with a ticketing system, and that's where 1-to-1 plus came into play.
Yeah,
we were looking at the time, because of the Chromebooks and things like that, maybe an all-in-one platform to be able to track these things. And I'll tell you what, in the last year since we've started on the project of using 1-to-1 plus, it's completely evolved. Like anything else, they take customer feedback pretty well, and they're a smaller company, but they're hands-on. You will get the top people of 1-to-1 plus on the phone on a Zoom meeting if you need support. They're constantly improving things.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see how it kind of came to fruition, and it started us. I think Nikki came across it originally, mentioned it to Scott and myself, and we happened to do the demo, and we were blown away by the demo. And we're able to do tickets as far as them being submitted. It automates who it's routed to once those things are in place.
Yeah.
We're able to keep track of all of our Chromebooks, our iPads.
And Maron, do we have a lot of those?
Yeah. It's great.
Maron. Because really, not to interrupt you, Kevin, but I do that.
Wait, you do?
Yes, I do. I'm very self-aware, Victoria. So
I'm just making
one thing I am very proud of, and I take zero credit on this, because this is something that they had going on before I was even a twinkle in the eye of the IT department, was to get onboarded with 1-to-1 plus. And when I talk to neighboring districts, part of what CJ Rung and I go through in making sure that we are compliant with the law, federal and state law, one of those pieces is to make sure that you have very clear records of your assets and who has your asset and when they're turning them back in and all of that. And there are districts that are still using like a Google Sheet, and manually somebody has to like add that in and change that. And there's so much room for error, you know? So I am actually very proud of the work that the team did in getting one-to-one in place with the return and distribution of our district assets, because that's really, you know, that's an amazing feature for the taxpayers of the district, for the people that live here, because very rarely do we have a device. Like, of course it happens, but it's very rare that we don't know where one of the devices are, who is in possession of one of the devices. Clearly in the pandemic, when these guys were literally handing them out in the, you know, in the roundabout of, you know, the high school, once we came on with one-to-one plus, they did a lot of work to make sure that these assets were all accounted for in one-to-one plus, even after that mass distribution in the street. And they'll never really tell you, because they're pretty much one of the most humble groups of people I've ever met, but they did a lot of work on the back end after the fact of the implementation of one-to-one plus to make sure that these records are accurate. And we are far above and beyond. And this is not something that necessarily instructionally impacts you guys out there, but I think it's good for you to know, you know, that, you know, we are aware of what kid has what device. And if you have an issue with a student on a device, Kevin's able to very quickly pick up, well, what device is this kid on and what's happening with that device, and how can we swap that out quickly to get the kid on a device that works. And that's because we have such a you know, robust system put together in order to get that workflow going in an effective way that's not just manually being recorded by one person. Because for a district this size to do that manual recording, we would never get anything done.
No, absolutely.
I'm done interrupting now. You guys can move.
Yeah, so we, I don't even know what the hell I'm talking. Oh, I said hell. Well,
I'll chime in and just say that, like, this system is completely new for me, because everything since 2015 was through email for me, and it's really beneficial so that I can track things, especially if I see that, you know, a group of teachers in a specific grade level or a building need help with, you know, a certain piece of Google Classroom. Maybe they want to start asking questions in a certain way. I'm able to say, hey, like, this is where we need more professional development in this way. So not only for helping me out in sifting through my email and trying to get to everyone, but it's also great for tracking our needs in the different buildings.
Yeah. And I also think, you know, like we talk about goals and everybody comes into whatever their job is. You know, I'm a really big supporter of having goals, whether they be little or small, and checking little things off your to-do list. And one of my bigger goals was to kind of bridge the gap of communication between, you know, IT and the level of communication that was, you know, out there with the teaching staff and administrative staff and the IT team, and what goes on behind the door, right? So I think that a lot of what we now do by Victoria, you know, came in last summer when we were going forward with one-to-one plus, and she said, you know what, instructional technology ticket, put me on one-to-one plus, and let's get going. And now, you know, she collaborates on some of these tickets that really are not just IT, and they really are not just, you know, IT information technology, and they're not just instructional technology, because what we're finding more than we ever found in the past is that these worlds collide. They collide in every day, in every way. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, Victoria and I being on the tickets really allows for that transition of work. You know, Kevin will work on something and then just say, Victoria, I've taken it as far as I can take it. Can you look at this? Or a ticket will come in and go to Victoria, and she'll say, you know what, this really isn't in my area of ability to help. So I'm going to comment to the teacher, let them know I saw it, and I'm going to forward this ticket over to somebody else so that they can look at it and maybe take a stop by the classroom and see what's going on. So there's so many layers to why one-to-one plus has benefited us. But I think it has also helped in that global layer of communication. Is it perfect? No. Are there going to be some days that some of you guys want a little bit faster of service? I'm sure that will happen. However, I think that part of what I'm hoping everybody is coming to understand, the more we're out there and the more we're communicating about what we're doing, is that the real layers of what is going on with the team on a daily basis And each of these tickets comes in with a priority. And I always want everybody to know you matter. You matter, your problems matter, your issues matter, and it doesn't mean that something or someone is more important than you, but we are looking at everything on a very direct basis. Like, who is impacted by this? How many people is it impacting? Does it impact your ability to teach? And we have to look at it, or also order of how many came in today. So you may want instant service, but unfortunately you might be putting in a ticket on a day where literally everyone under the sun is coming back to a problem. Maybe there was an update over the weekend and now everybody's experiencing an issue and potentially somebody's out, another person's covering the building. So I'm very proud on the whole on how quickly these tickets are resolved, because I do think for the most part they are resolved quickly. And then sometimes the solution is just not that easy, right? So sometimes it means that, the ticket goes to a building level technician, and then they have to escalate it up to one of the network engineers like Kevin, CJ, Victor, Scott, whomever. And they need to take the time to really look at what the problem is. So sometimes when it comes down to securely filtering, sometimes they have to get on a call with the company to find out why there's an issue. So, we can't really say why some tickets are, handled in a more timely fashion than others, other than sometimes it's just not that black and white. It's just not that cut and dry all the time. And sometimes there's a lot of work that goes in on the back end to really get that ticket resolved. And the other piece I want to add to that is really just the fact that the level of communication that can happen on One-to-One Plus is so much greater than what happened on School Dude. And people need to just go back to their ticket. Like, their ticket gets updated. Like, when somebody looks at your ticket, they put a narrative in there. They write you, like, okay, I tried to resolve the problem, must escalate the issue to Kevin Heyman, and, he's going to look at it. And then, you always have to look at that ticket to see if there was an update to what's going on, and always know that someone's looking at your issue.
One good indicator, because I know the question's been asked a couple of times, like, who sees the tickets as well. So when you get your email notification, we do have like groups set up in One-to-One Plus based on responsibilities and who has access to what within the office. Certain items, like, let's say student accounts. I'm going to get the ticket for student accounts in the district because that's one of my responsibilities. If it's something related to security cameras that may be down or the security software, that's going to get routed to Victor. But a good indicator to know who's seeing that is when you get your email notification. It should show you in the sent header of the email who's on that ticket, because they're going to be the one that's going to get the notification as well. Again, there could be multiple people on it. So if there's like I'm trying to think, like a network related issue, I know it's very broad, but if there's like a network connection issue, there is a group that gets that notification. That includes myself, Victor, Scott, CJ, I think Mike Moeller, so, but based on whatever it is, then it may get routed specifically to one of us. That way we all know about it, and if it's something that's specific, we can assign it to one of the group of us. And then your building level stuff as well. Your techs in each building are added to the tickets as well. So if there's an issue over at RMS, Santo is going to be put on that ticket. But also, Jackie Houston will be notified about an issue as well. So we've set it up where multiple people are getting the notifications as well. So if it may be something very straightforward that Jackie may be to be able to address prior to Santo going to the building,
Mm-hmm.
She gets notified. She can take care of it and close it out before Santo gets there. And if not, then Santo will address it. Or again, if it's another building, Mike Moeller at the high school, Chromebook related issues, that gets a little wide, because if it's a broken Chromebook, then that goes to TJ. If it's potentially, apps, extensions, that will get routed to Alise and
Mm-hmm.
then myself. There's a lot to it. So there are multiple people though on each ticket queue and ticket
Yeah.
that's created and put out there. So we're trying to communicate as much information as we can.
Yeah, yes,
So,
we are. But the other piece of this, and as we close out, I think what we want to hear from you guys is, like, what do you like about the new ticketing system? What would you like to see brought? If there's any like holes in this that you see as end users, like what, be brutal. It's okay. Tell us, if it's possible for us to change something, we can look into it. Is there something else we could add as a ticket option? What has your experience been? And I know that, listen, change is hard. Change is hard, whether it be a big change or a small change. And I know that this was a small change at the beginning of the year, where everybody had to switch to 1-to-1 plus. And I think we did our best to communicate on Superintendent's Conference Day and beyond, like how to use 1-to-1 plus. But I know that whenever you have to change a process that you've been used to for a long time, it becomes hard to adapt. Listen, I had a principal once who handed me a book called Who Moved My Cheese, because I was so, a change always made me anxious, when I was younger. It's true. But any way that we can improve, we're always looking to do that.
I'm laughing at the title. I'm not laughing about your anxieties. I'm laughing at the title.
It was fun. And listen, for those of us that book made a world of difference for me. It's a very short book, and it's an analogy about a mouse who had his cheese moved in the maze that he had to go through, and he struggled with that change. And it's a very short book, and it was when I was moving from Ronkonkoma Middle School to the high school to teach, up at the high school. And I loved where I worked, and I was being transferred, and I was struggling with that change. And he handed me this book, and he talked about how change is not something to fear. It's something to be, excited about. And it really changed my mentality back then. I think I was like 24 years old. And just this little book about, who moved my cheese and a mouse has really helped shape how I deal with change. Hence the podcast title, Refreshed. You could look at things and worry about them, or you could look at things and say, I'm excited to take on this challenge. And even with something as little as a change of platform of a district ticket, I think that it's all about communication. It's all about saying, maybe I didn't like the change at first, but this is how I've grown to become adaptable to it. And I feel like, Deb and I have had I'm going to shout you out again, Deb, but we've had a lot of conversations about like communication and how to track certain things that are going on. And I have to imagine, to a certain degree, and once everybody knows how to use 1-to-1 plus to its fullest extent, someone's going to like to see the narrative that kind of came about for all of those issues. So tell us what you think this week regarding 1-to-1 plus. And we will see you next week.
Well, wait, before we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you now. Just
interrupt
as
me.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you. So just as just a reminder, just because
I had to clap. Someone interrupted Alise. This is amazing.
Walking away.
This
Nobody
is
can't see
see
me
it.
walk away.
No.
I'm walking away.
See it. No. Just as like a reminder too. 1-to-1 plus IT related tickets, school dude, maintenance, building level, things like that, because we still get those questions.
Yeah,
so I feel like that's something we gotta clarify.
Reminder.
And there should be on the desktops, on your PCs, icons being pushed out on the desktop. One that specifies IT help desk, another that specifies maintenance requests and building requests.
Yeah, that is a good reminder. Yes.
And in your on your Chromebooks or mobile devices that are signed in with your district Google account, you'll see CCSD bookmarks, and you'll see the IT help desk 1-to-1 plus in the bookmark section. So, and remember when you're logging in to use your Google account. Please. All right, I'm done interrupting you now.
All right, guys, we will tune in next week. We will talk to you next week with episode 5, topic to be announced.